I know our live in studio audience is absolutely amazing. Welcome to another episode of the Young Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Jay, and I'm super excited to be here with you today because I'm joined by my friend Jay. Try not to get confused as to which Jay is which Jay, but the Jay joining me today is the founder, the mind, the all the above behind the Zen Dad Method. The Zen Dad Method works with fathers to create a life based around intentional parenting. I'm super excited to have Jay on to talk more about the Zen Dad Method, what it is, and how you guys can learn more. So, Jay, welcome. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, about the Zen Dad Method, and anything you want us to know about your life and your story.
Oh, that's huge. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show first, Jay. It's a honor to be here. I know you're a very intentional dad. You love being a dad, so it's great to have some dad chats with you. Um, what is the Zen Dad Method? The Zen Dad Method is it's all about creating a life that you want as a father. And all we do is help guide you through that to figure out what your priorities are, how to implement things so that you're actually living the life that you want to live. And I mean, if you look at it, there's coaches in business, there's coaches in sports, there's coaches, there's life coaches, there's all sorts of coaches. And we found that dads don't really have something to fall back on. So there was definitely a need for it, and so we created it. And now we're helping dads with countless issues, countless issues. I mean, dads have all the stress and the world on their shoulders constantly. So who do you turn to and say, hey, I've got this specific problem. I need a sounding board. I need somebody to bounce these ideas off with. I've got this really unique problem that I don't know who to go with. And that's where we help support dads with that. So yeah, it's kind of what we do in a nutshell.
I love that. So, you became a parent about 9 years ago, or a dad about 9 years ago. Take us through what that journey's been like for you over the last 9 years, from that first moment when you found out you were going to be a dad to present day.
Well, we were planning to have a kid. We tried. We were in the process of doing it. So I was really intentional right off the bat. I knew that fatherhood was going to change me, so I wanted to get right into the role. Within the first year of us having our first child, I became a stay-at-home dad. So that was a really big one for me. I my partner wanted to continue with her career, and it was really hard for her to keep up with the baby. And I've got a lot of energy, and I was like, well, let's switch. And she's like, game on, let's do this. And we didn't really think about it a whole lot. And then like 6 months after, I'm like losing my mind because it's really hard to be a stay-at-home parent. And I figured it out. I was like, I'm gonna tough it through. And my partner did really good in her career, and I loved it. I was a stay-at-home dad for 7 years. So we had a second son. So I've got two boys. They're now 9 and 5, and I love it. I still love it. We separated. Me and my partner separated a couple of years ago, and I wanted to know what was I going to do with my life now? I wasn't a stay-at-home dad anymore. I had to get back into the workforce, and I had a coach. Actually, I was working with a coach at the time, and he said, well, if you could do anything, what would it be? And that was kind of what started the whole Zen Dad method. Just all the things that I went through as a stay-at-home dad, and I didn't have the resources. Everything was based towards moms. Everything was really like for mompreneurs or like mom groups. And I was like, well, I think there's a real need for working with dads and helping them. And I've learned so much through my last 10 years of being a father. And all the things that come along with it. It was like, let's create something. So I actually worked with my coach to create this. He's the head coach of the Zen Dad Method now. His name is Roger Rugi. He is phenomenal, world class coach. He's worked with military, first responders, police, you name it. He's been doing it for almost 30 years on a one-to-one resilience level, bringing mindfulness to first responders. And what we've created is just absolutely phenomenal. So it's been changing lives. He's been doing it for decades. I've been helping him we've been working together for almost 3 years now. Wow, that's crazy to think about that. But yeah, it's been a story. It's been a journey for sure.
That's awesome. So, how did that? So, when you and your now ex-wife separated at the time, how did that change like your parenting style, interacting with your kids? Like what were some of those changes that brought along? Because I know for me personally, like when that happened, like my life was like, like I wish I had a glass shattering like sound effect. Because in cartoons,
Just
yeah, when the
loaded.
glass
Yeah.
shatters, it just explodes, and it's crazy because when mine happened, I'm about 3 years removed from it now this year, and at first, it was a mess. My health went to crap. Um, I was at the time, I think I told this story previously on the podcast, but at the time, I was about I'm 6 feet tall. Yes, I'm actually 6 feet tall. I'm not 5'11" 3/4. I'm actually 6 feet tall. I'm a little bit over.
Yeah.
Um, I was about 235, 238. I was the heaviest I ever been in my life.
Yeah.
Um, like I was so unhealthy, pushing an XL shirt. Like I know the camera adds 20 pounds, so that's why my face looks so big on the screen. But um, I was super unhealthy. Like I just had terrible habits. I wasn't really exercising. I wasn't really supplementing anything. I was just super unhealthy. So then after my divorce happened, separation that led to my divorce, I had lost probably in about 6 months. I dropped from 230 down to 170 something. Like I
Yeah.
dropped so much weight super quick and it wasn't healthy. I kept getting complimented at like work, like, wow, you look so good, you're looking so much better, you look so much healthier. Except for the people who like really understood what was going on, like behind the scenes. Like there were certain
Yeah.
people that were like, you look exhausted. Like what you're going through, like I see it on your face. I had big old bags under my eyes. Like my bags probably went down like by the by the edge of my nose. I was
It's
supplementing
hard.
caffeine all the time. It was insane. I was crying a lot. I was barely eating. I was just tired and I was depressed, anxious, all the things, all the bad thoughts, negative. I was angry. Everyone I would lash out on. No one wanted to be near me because I would likely lash out on them for pretty much no reason. Um, it was just rough. I'm very lucky and very fortunate that even though addiction runs in my family, through my biological mother, that I didn't step into that world. Very lucky because that would have caught me hardcore. And so for me, it was just the opposite effect. Granted, it led to that set me down a path of going to a doctor, talking about my health, doing an extra checkup that same year, him noticing it, kind of waking me up a bit to get some things together, and then set me on the path. But everything kind of took a break. My schooling took a break. My blog that was just getting going, and one of my YouTube channels and a podcast was just growing, and then that had to take a it took a two year break
Yeah.
from that because I just didn't have the energy or motivation to create. It took a lot to get back into it. Um,
Well,
so
like
yeah,
honestly, this is this is thank you so much for sharing that. That's very vulnerable and transparent of you. I've heard the story, and this is the thing when guys separate from their mother of their children. It's hard. It's super hard on them. For me, it was crushing, and it sounds like for you the same thing, right? That glass shattering, that oh, my whole world just broke apart and it's pieces, and I don't know how to put it together. And what do you do? And I for me, honestly, when we did separate, it was because of drugs. And me and my partner got into this, and she dove right into the world of drugs, and it was therapeutic trips, and she had all this research done about it, and it got real messy real fast. And when you're involving small kids and drug habits and all sorts of stuff, it tears families apart. And it doesn't matter. I know a lot of people that think they're smarter than drugs, and it's like you're not going to beat it.
no,
You're not going to be able to infuse this into your life and manage it. And I've just seen it crush families, and it crushed ours. And knowing that now, and going through it, looking back, I'm like, wow, yeah, that was hard. It was so hard, and I'm super. Uh, I'm honored to be able to have worked with the people that I'm now working with, and having them help guide other people through, because I know how challenging it is. It was a point in my life where it was when I was contemplating suicide, you know, you're just so low. You can't sleep. You're not doing anything. And for me, my whole life shifted so much, and I had to get off of drugs. I couldn't do anything. I wasn't working. I had to find a job, had to make money. I had to do all of these things, manage them all, figure out that separation, figure out how to parent my children still. I'm still the primary custody parent. I'm the primary caregiver of these two small kids, and I had just the whole world came steamrolling at me as fast as it possibly could, and I couldn't pivot fast enough. And what do? And it was just like, you got to slow down and just really prioritize what matters most to you, and get your life as stable as possible. And every day, just take that one step at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time. Looking back 2 years now, 2.5 years, it seems like I climbed an impossible mountain, and I could have been easily just ripped apart, lost everything. But it was having that support, having people there that you can count on and know what to do. Because I went to everybody. What do I do with this situation? What do I do with this situation? And nobody knew. And your friends, they're always like, well, let's go have a drink. Let's drink it away. Doesn't do it. I needed solutions. I needed actual things that I could do that were helping me pivot and make these decisions, so that I could create a life for my kids, for myself, that I was proud of, that we were thriving in, that we weren't just surviving through, but like, how do we change that whole paradigm shift and actually thrive in life again and be happy again? Because my kids were sad. I was sad. I was depressed. And how do you parent when you just like, you don't want to get out of bed in the morning? It's hard. So putting those tools in place and having somebody guide me through that, it was a lifesaver. It was literally saving my life through that whole situation.
100%. And I think that's where I feel like I was honestly really blessed. Was my brother Aaron had come in to my life. We were raised separate. I've told this story before, but we were raised separate. He was raised by his fraternal grandparents. I was raised by our maternal grandparents, and then we didn't grow up together. We didn't really talk. We knew about each other. Like, I remember going through school saying, "Oh, I have a brother I never met. Um, I have these siblings and whatnot from my dad. Same, he's from my mom, and all this fun stuff." And then we probably started talking, less than a year before I got divorced. Really getting to know each other, mingling, hanging out, playing games together, and all that fun stuff. Less than a year. So when the first big event of before my divorce happened in August of 2020, before my youngest daughter was born. Uh, I remember telling him, and he was so new to my life and everything. So I'm pretty sure we started like talking and everything in 2020. He was so new to my life that I felt bad going to him, but I had nobody else because I had no support system here outside of work. I had no
Yeah.
family. All my family's on the west side of the state. And so I had him. That was it. He helped get me through that. And then, 8 months later, um, everything happens and completely blows up and goes out of proportion. And now we're here where we are. But, it was less than a year he was in my life. So I was very grateful I had him. But I didn't have any other support system outside of work. I would have people who reached out to me, um, that had heard through the grapevine one way or another. And people put things together. Like when you post on social media and you change your relationship status, you both change your profile pictures to not include the other, and it's just you and the kids. Like, people pick up on that stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
Of course.
like, I picked up on it. A family member of mine, she posted just her and her dog. It's like, oh, well, I guess that wedding's off. Um, kind of thing. Not to like make fun of her, just anything, just to try to bring some humor to the situation. But
Yeah.
um, I was very lucky that I had my brother, and I was very lucky that I had my job to just distract me. And then I had baseball season right after that, which was really nice to have because I had another just big distraction. Um, but no, it was really hard, and you mentioned your thoughts of suicide, depression, the sadness. It's And if, as far as I know, you were in your 40s when it happened, right?
Yeah, I'm 45 now. I had
Okay.
kids a little bit later in life. I
Okay.
have a pretty wild past, and I was like, "There's no way kids kind of fit into that lifestyle." And when I was like, "Okay, we're gonna have kids," I knew I had to shift and pivot. So I just kind of got it all out of my system. I really
Makes
did.
sense. Makes
Yep.
sense. And I just wanted to confirm that because it goes to not prove the statistic right. So you're not a part of that statistic, but usually men in their 40s are the highest at risk population for suicide. Especially Caucasian men in their 40s are the highest at risk population for suicide and have the
The
highest
pressure's
suicide
immense.
rates in North America. Um, and you're right, it is men in general too. In America, at least, it's a 4-to-1 ratio. I'm pretty sure Canada is also right there as well, around 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 men to every one woman. Um, I would have to look it up. I haven't looked it up in a while. I just know America's for sure. If you didn't know, Jay's in Canada. That's why his O's sound weird when he talks. But I'm just
No dude about it, eh?
but no, it's a devastating time. Like mine, I don't really talk about mine because I don't want to bash or bring any of that to light on the podcast about my ex-wife or anything. Um, but yeah, it was a really hard and dark time. And
Yeah,
when you separate from your kid's mom, the mother of your children, uh, there's always a part of you that just feels like it's gone,
it's
and
gone.
that it's it's crushing, it's soul crushing because that's like the person you imagine the next 18 plus years with your kids, doing all the things with, doing all these different things with. And it takes a lot of mindset shifting. It takes a lot of, I don't even know how to say it, like, or how to describe it, but it just takes a lot to shift that, to change that.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely circumstances can help kind of change that and whatnot based on what happened, or how it happened. Um, but it's really hard to change that. And it's the hardest thing for me was after the separation was this newfound silence and all this time because I have my kids half the time. I'm the custodial parent according to the court paperwork and everything. Because I got out in front of it. Um, but yeah, that silence, it was drowning. Like I was drowning in this new silence.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah, especially when they're gone. Like when my kids go 2 nights a week, they go to their mother's house, and for the first, oh, I don't know, 3 months, I couldn't even stay in the house. I was gone. I was just gone because it was just too weird to me to have such a silent house. And I now I love it. Now I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get peace and quiet for a night. I get to clean the house. I live like an adult again. But it's that transition period of changing from that family unit and having that separation. As a man, you feel like you failed. You just feel like, oh, I didn't pull it off. I didn't create this family that we planned on having. We didn't grow old together. We didn't raise these kids together. That was the idea. And when that happens, and as a guy, you just like, you don't want to tell anyone because you feel shame about it. You feel like it's your whole world crumbled down. You didn't manage it. And all those guys in their 40s, the statistics you were talking about, like that time of your life, when you're in your 40s, you're usually a manager of your job, your business. You're in a more responsible filled position in life. You've got the pressures of home life. You've got the pressures of your kids. You've got the pressures of like the world, and everything's kind of aimed at that demographic of men. Okay, it's your responsibility. You have to be able to handle all of this stuff. Like if you're a man, you can handle everything that we throw at you. Well, it just so happens that right now, throwing everything at men is just crushing them. The responsibilities, the everything that they have to manage throughout the day, and the expectations on men are through the roof, and it's crushing men. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to process it. They don't have any support systems in place to get them through that stuff. And so that's where we thought, hey, this is the opportunity to help those guys find somebody, to find the coaching, to find the help, the support. Here are the tools that we're using that are working. And we've taken these tools from, I'm the head of the parenting group for the Flow Research Collective with Stephen Kotler. There's over 8,000 members that are just looking for peak performance. And what are the tools that they use? I've trained with Wim Hof. I've been to Spain. I've climbed the mountains with him. I've done the ice baths. I'm a breathwork facilitator. Like, we've pretty much scoured the whole planet looking for the best ways to change state, to put yourself mentally where you want to be, to deal with stress, all of these things. And we've packaged them all into a program that helps guys deal with these extremely high levels of stress so that they can actually enjoy their fucking lives. You know, it's not just about struggling every day and sacrificing everything that you are so that your family can eat. You know, that's not what life is supposed to be like. How do we actually enjoy it as fathers? How do we enjoy the time with our kids? How do we have time for our kids so that we can enjoy it? Like, we're just getting like steamrolled literally by life's responsibilities. And it's not supposed to be that way. I don't think we're supposed to just like get into the machine and be a cog in the wheel to make capitalism work and to give all of my time and all of my effort over to a corporation that will easily fire me when they have to downsize. That's not the world I want to live in, and it's not the world I want my kids to live in. So how do we create that model now, and how do we shift that, make generational changes for our kids so that they don't have to grow up in a world where they're just getting crushed by life?
100%. And that's, that's well, just to kind of recap, going back to the beginning of that, it's, I'm the same now, 3 years later, where I'm like, oh my gosh, thank goodness my week's over, because I can tell that you're tired of being here, and you definitely, it's time for you to go to your mom's. Uh, you're over being here, kind of thing.
Yep.
Uh, and then now it's appreciated. Now I have a life. Now things have moved on. Uh, but overall, there at the end, what you were saying, like, I don't even know where to start with that, because there are so many things you can do. Your life isn't supposed to be dictated by work. Your life should be dictated by family and by your kids, and or whatever set of priorities you put it in. Of course, priorities are going to be linear. They're not or they're not going to be linear. They're going to be more fluid. They're going to change depending on where you're at, what you're doing, and how you're doing it, why you're doing it. But it makes more sense that change has to start with us setting that example and modeling that behavior. Starts with all
Yeah.
the fathers around, because if your kid just sees, oh, dad just went to work, he worked hard, he provided for our family, but I never got time with him, then that kid is going to take that example and going to do the same thing, because that's all they know. They know, oh, I just need to go to work and provide for my family and do the thing. um, I just want to make shirts that say just do the thing. But just doing the things is part of the problem. Not setting those healthy work life boundaries, that balance, saying, oh, well, I work these 8-10 hours, and that's what I work. I work these 8-10 hours. That's it. Everything else stays here. It stays at work. Tomorrow exists. I'm not at risk of losing my job. Tomorrow exists. I need to break those narratives within myself. I think it comes down to more like inward reflecting. Kind of like I talk a lot about, or I've talked a lot about previously, with the whole well balanced dad diet idea that I created um, about a year ago now. That it starts with that self reflection of why. Why am I not spending more time with my kids? Why am I reacting a certain way? Why am I doing this a certain way? Why do I not feel like I have enough time? Why am I not making the time? Why am I not doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I not this, that, and the other? It all starts with that why. Finding that why and that purpose from within, and understanding why you're making all these actions or doing all these actions and making all these choices. Why am I getting angry at my kid for this?
Hmm.
Okay, I'm getting angry for this reason. Okay, why do I feel like I need to get angry for that reason? Well, because of this reason. Okay, why about that? And really kind of root cause analyzing yourself. Root cause analyzing, okay, why don't I have any time to give to my kids? Well, probably because I'm working. Why haven't I set boundaries with my job so I can spend more time with my family? Why haven't I used that time off I have? Because that's my time off. I can use it as I want. Oh, because I get guilt tripped. Well, maybe why haven't I stood up for myself yet and advocated? Because I feel like I can't, or maybe I don't know how. Okay, why haven't I learned how to advocate for myself? Well, because I'm a man and we're told to shut up and do the thing. Uh, okay,
Yeah,
well,
well, I totally get it.
and so it
That's
it just it goes deeper. You got to go deep, and you got to find that why and push that narrative with yourself. Like, okay, well, why am I not? I have 24 hours in a day, and you can go into the whole gym, bro. It's like we all got the same 24 hours, bro. Gotta make the most of it. The whole gym bro method, which isn't effective for anyone. But it's like, okay, well, maybe that is gonna require me changing my shift so I can go in at 6 and get off at 3, and then I can go and pick the kids up from school and help at home. Maybe that's why my marriage is failing. Maybe that's why this thing isn't going well. Maybe I need to talk and advocate and be a little bit more transparent and vulnerable with my employer, saying, hey, things at home are really struggling. That's really matters. That's where my values are. And I need to change my shift so I can be home more, so I can do the things with my kids, with my family that matter. Because this job is just a job. It pays my bills. It's great, but things at home matter too. And being that transparent, having that honest conversation, I think is where a lot of that kind of starts.
100%. I agree with you. I think about it like this. I talk to a lot of dads about what they're doing, and they just feel like they're just going faster and faster and faster. And the problem with that is, yeah, we can be more efficient and we can go faster, and we can do more things. But if you're pointed in the wrong direction, it's kind of counterintuitive, right? Like you want to pick up speed, you want to pick up momentum, but if you're going backwards, it's no good. So instead, have you ever played Mario Kart? And
Hmm.
when you get turned around in Mario Kart, that little cloud comes and it picks you up and it puts you the right way.
Hmm.
That's kind of what we do, because there's so many dads that are just going full steam, like everything they got, foot right down to the floor. The gas is just they're driving as fast as they can, but they're going in the wrong direction. And we're like, wait a second, it's not about speed, it's about direction. So what we've created is something that points you to where you actually want to be going, and just taking those steps day by day, not as fast as you possibly can, but at least in the right direction. It changes the whole game. It's it's where you're going to see the progress that you want to see in your life, and setting those priorities up, the family time. It's actually a really big undertaking, figuring out what's important to you, what your priorities are, scheduling that in, and having a structure to follow, and having somebody that keeps you accountable, that keeps you weekly. This is what we're talking about, this is what we're doing, let's figure out this part of your life, let's dig in, like what are the reasons you're not spending time with your kid? Why are you reacting to your kids instead of responding to them? Because it is the modeling that they're going to look at. You can tell your kids everything, you act like this and be this kind of kid and do this. They're not going to listen to you. They're going to see what you do. And when they actually see you doing the things, they see you having fun, they see you prioritizing your life in a certain way, like how you're eating, the foods that that make you feel good. That's the biggest impact on your kids. Be the model for them, you know?
100%. You hit on two things that I love talking about here. The first is the the process or the progress over the product kind of thing. It's one thing I talk a lot about with parents in my line of work,
Yep.
working with youth and families in mental health. Is so many parents get caught up in the product. We're always focused on what our kid is producing. Are they producing the grades? Are they producing the accolades? Are they producing all the things? Well, we get lost. We get so lost in focusing on that product that our kids end up resenting us because they now equate your love with the product. Um, so they know like they have to go way out of their way, way extreme to go and do top notch, top tier things. And if they don't do the top notch, top tier number one, kind of product that you're expecting, or they come to learn that you expect from them, then they're going to be like, oh, I'm just a disappointment. Mom and dad don't love me. They don't care. They don't want me, all the things, right?
Yep.
But when we get lost in the process or the progress, we start to see how amazing our kids are. We see them turning a C in science, or maybe a really low C, into a really solid B, from a 70 to an 86. Maybe they're not great at science at all. Maybe they can't
Mhm.
stand science because it just doesn't make sense to them, or whatever the subject may be in school. But they work so hard just to go from a 70 to an 85. And when we get lost in the process with them, we can now see, like, oh, great job doing your science homework. I see you working super hard. Great job. Reassuring them that their process is more important than the product. Because ultimately, grades are important, but they're not everything. Sports accolades are not everything. Your kid's probably not going to go D1 anyway. Sorry to break it to you. Um, just to say it out there. Um,
Yeah.
if your kid really wants an academic scholarship, they're going to get an academic scholarship. If they don't want that, then maybe they don't want to go to a typical 4-year college. Maybe they aren't working for that because they'd rather do something else. But you're putting so much pressure on them to get the product that you're missing that they're great with their hands. They're super skilled with wires and colors and designing, or maybe with their trade, or they have such a crazy interest in cars that you lost all that, like, because you're so focused on them getting that, when you missed years of getting opportunity to bond with them over cars, because you're also into cars, but you missed that whole thing because you're so focused on them getting an academic scholarship, that you missed all these chances to bond over cars, to work on cars together, to teach them, to grow with them, because you're focused on the process, the product versus the process. So that's super
Yeah.
important. And then the other thing there is we have to model what we want from our kids. If we want our kids to be shitheads, well, or sorry, not if we want, but if our kids are shitheads, guess where they're probably getting that from? Probably
Yeah. They're
getting it
modeling.
from
Yeah.
they're getting it from their model, their example. A lot of parents that come in to get services that my program offers think that we're going to fix their kid. We're not. There's no
Yeah.
way. There's no way about it that we're going to fix your kid working with them 2 hours a week. There's no chance, because they're with you all the other hours of the week outside of school. Oh, well, then school's going to fix them. No, that's not school's job, is to fix your kid. Their job is to simply try to teach them to the best of their abilities. Um, and then for them to pass the standardized test so the school gets funding, and then go from there. Um, so really that modeling instructions, like if you want them to be good, kind, well-rounded, hardworking, fun, nice individuals, then you should probably be that fun, nice, hardworking, kind individual. If you want them
Yeah.
to be grateful for what they have, you need to be grateful for what you have. If you want them to be happy and excited about the simple things in life, then you need to be happy and excited about the simple things in life. Because kids, they're normally pretty happy about just seeing a cloud in the sky, or looking at clouds and looking at different shapes, or they're happy that a flower's blooming, or they're happy that there's a bird, or different pieces, different grass looks different way. Like, they get excited and happy about that because it's different. They get to see the difference in front of them. But when you react just like, oh yeah, well, that grass is yellow, that grass is green, that's probably dead, this grass is green, like it's more alive. If you react like that, then your kid's gonna be like, oh, I guess there's no joy in life. But if you're like, yeah, that why do you think that grass is yellow versus that grass is green? And you challenge them and you make them think and you match that energy with them. You hear it all the time in the dating scene. Like, oh, I want someone who matches my energy. Um, well, do you match your kids' energy? If you're expecting that from someone, do you also do it with your current relationships that you have? Do you match the energy? Do you match the excitement, the emotion, the love, all the things in between there?
Yeah.
So,
One of the things that we really focus on in my house is games. We love games. We gamify pretty much everything. We gamify the dishes and laundry. But every Wednesday night, we have a game night. We play games, and different people come different weeks, and changes in the summer, changes in the winter. But right now, we're really into board games. We play a lot of board games, And I really like it because my kids get to see a bunch of adults playing and laughing. And we shut off our phones. We're not on them, and we just focus in on the game. But there's so much laughter. There's so much healthy competition. It's not like we showing everybody loses at some point, right? And what it looks like to lose. And I really want to model that stuff for them, because I think that's the most important stuff for kids, is seeing how to enjoy life, seeing how to have fun. What does conflict resolution look like when you disagree on, did somebody cheat on this game, or what? Oh, no, I'm not playing. And like, there's all this emotion that comes out of a game night. And I think that it's super valuable to include them in that game night, include them in, games that are maybe just a little bit outside of their comfort zone, stuff like that, to kind of push them, but also to have a good time and show how you can have fun with your friends. One of the big things that I notice, I talk to a lot of dads, and one of the first questions I always ask is, well, how do you have fun? What do you do for fun? And then they go, I go to the gym. I go, no, that's not fun. Like, that's not fun. That's good for you. That's healthy for you. You probably enjoy it. But when do you laugh out loud? When does your stomach hurt from laughing? When do your cheeks hurt from laughing? When do you have those moments where you're just having so much fun? And 9 times out of 10, they're stumped. They don't know. They've just gotten into this routine where they're just doing the things that they have to do. They've got a checklist, and they're like, yep, I worked today. Yep, I ate healthy today. Yeah, I did this. I went to the gym. I'm doing all the things. And there's no time for fun. There's no time for enjoyment. And I think we're just robbing our kids from that whole experience of actually having fun with your parents. I mean, you've got those things to do. You have responsibilities, sure. But there's also this responsibility of showing your children how to enjoy life. And I love how you said it. I like to sum it up like the process is so important. It really is. How you're showing your kids how to do things. So, the ends don't justify the means. If you're yelling at your kids to go to bed, right? We don't have to do that. Let's change our process so they actually enjoy the process of going to bed. So now it's not a struggle every time to go to bed. Every night you're just yelling at your kids to go to bed, they're going to hate it, and they're going to fight that, and they're not going to want to do it. Of course they're not going to want to do it. They don't enjoy it. Once they enjoy the process, then they're going to enjoy the results also, right? So there is this mindset that you have to switch when you're working with kids, that what I'm doing and teaching them and how I'm teaching them is very, very important. It's not just what they get out of the experience. It's how they got to the end product. I love that idea that you set out there, for sure.
100%. So we kind of got into the mental, emotional, behavioral health stuff pretty off the bat there. So I just want to talk about our hot button parenting things. And
Sure.
I think it's so important. We mentioned it kind of briefly, kind of alluded to it. But the thing that you wanted to talk a little bit more about that should be changed and could be changed, I've talked about it plenty of times on the podcast, is that moms are better parents. And
Yeah.
just to kind of put it out there, there's no good way to preface that, but there's a lot of really bad moms, and there's a lot of great dads. But with the family court system, at least in our country, especially in my state's a blue state, so that means it's more likely to be mom favored, mom's good, mom's great, mom's all these things. Working in the business I work in now, working in the program I work in now, I get to go to a lot of family court sessions. I get to go to a lot of different court hearings, work with court investigators, work with CPS on a totally different level. And it's really cool to see, because it's totally changed a lot of what I thought about the system. Granted, within my state, the area I live is very moderate, if not more right wing leaning, for a lot of things. But the politics don't really matter in it. But I've gotten to see that, like, dads are given a shot more and more. I
Yeah.
had a family to where the mom was exiling the dad, alienating him, and then he kept fighting, and he got 50-50 because the judge saw through all the things. Um, and so it's really important that to know, like, at least in this instance, like, it's worth the fight. Like, your kids are 100% going to be worth the fight. Moms aren't always the better parents. I mean, look at my situation. I'm way closer to my dad. Like, my dad's my dad. That's my boy. That's my
Yeah.
guy is my dad. I love my dad. Uh, but I still refer to my mother as my biological mother. I don't even call her by name. I don't call her mom. I biological mother. She's my
Yeah.
biological mother. That's it. She birthed me. A person who birthed me. You know, that's all she is. There's no emotional. There's no social. There's no connection there. Which just goes
All
to
right.
show that, like, it's not always the mom that's the superior parent. It's not always the moms that are always doing the best. Uh, so it's not to be expected that moms are the better parents all the time.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think it's a gender thing, to be honest. I don't think that moms automatically get that title. I'm the better parent. I think it's the parent that is trying. It's the intentional parent that wants to be around their kid, that shows up for their kid all the time. It's a consistency thing. And parenthood is not a sprint. You can't just get a bunch of parenting done. It's a marathon. It's really the long game. You're in it. You're in it for life. There's not a point in your life when you're just not going to be a parent anymore. So you got to look at that big picture. How am I going to parent this child for the rest of my life? Like even my mom in the last month, I've really leaned on my mom a lot for a lot of things. I won't get into it right now, but she's still there to help me through stuff. I'm 45 years old. Mom, like I need to talk. Let's go out for lunch. And she's there for me. And you got to think that you're going to be this child's life for the rest of your life. And when I think about it that way, I'm like, oh, I really want to nurture this relationship. I really want to be there for my children. And it doesn't always seem that way. And it really seems like we can get selfish. We can look at the things that we need to do, and we're not paying attention to what the effect is on our kids. And it doesn't matter if you're the mom or the dad. Are you the intentional parent? There always seems to be one. If you can get two parents that are really into being parents, that's amazing. But usually there's one parent that just wants to be a parent more. And it just happened to be me in this situation. And I just love it. And when I became a stay-at-home parent, I had a lot of backlash from, I live in a very small community. It's a farming community. I'm in Southern Ontario. I mean, there are a lot of cows around. There's like, I go down the street. I've got a farmer's market in my backyard every week. Like I'm in rural Canada. Like it's there, there's like manly men that are doing farming stuff, and there's certain roles, and a stay-at-home dad isn't a very popular role where
No,
I am. It's just
no,
not,
it's
right?
not.
Maybe in the bigger cities, it's becoming more popular. But for me,
Hmm.
I was really kind of doing it by myself. Like I didn't have a group of stay-at-home dads that I was meeting up with weekly. I didn't have any of the dad support groups, nothing like that, nothing local. I could find it online, but you really need like that tight community when you're raising kids. And moms have that. And that support group really elevates their game because they're constantly talking about it. In those first couple of years, I mean, it's baby and mom. And that's like, I think that's just a natural thing. You're breastfeeding, your hips are out there to put the kid on. Like it's that time when babies and their mothers really bond. And that's the job of the dad to kind of come in and be like, okay, like this is where I step in now. And I've got to prepare this child to make it on their own. I really think that's the whole role of a father, is to prepare your child to go out into the world and face it alone. And that's the responsibility of the dad. The responsibility of the mother, in my eyes, is to nurture and love that child when it's small, when it's very vulnerable to the world, and to be that protective energy in their lives. There's different roles for dads and moms. And when you can work in synergy with that, magic. But the norm right now is that there's a lot of separated families, blended families. Everybody's situation is so unique and so different. Some people have 3 kids. Some people have 2 kids, 2 step kids and 2 of their own kids. And it's like the Brady Bunch all over the place now. There's 6 kids in these families, and there's different weekends. And it's so dynamic and so complex. It's like, how do I parent in this? What do I do? And it's no longer who's the better parent. It's like, how do we co-parent? How do we get along? It shouldn't be a competition. That statement of like, who's the better parent is like, well, okay, if I'm doing this, how do we work together to create it so that there's a balance between the parents? What does that look like? It should never be a competition, even when you're going through a separation. Don't use your kids as weapons. Don't try to fight about who's being that better parent. How do we support each other? If I feel I'm the better parent, how can I help you up your game so that our kids are getting the best no matter where they are? That's kind of my mentality around parenting right now, especially co-parenting in the last 2.5 years with my ex, who historically for me, when I separated with somebody, when I broke up from a relationship, I was done. I was out. I was
Yeah.
moving on, right? I didn't want to stay in the energy. I didn't want to, okay, we're not doing this perfect. We'll stay friends. We'll stay civil. That's great. But I'm moving on with my life. And now I don't have that option. So it's like, how do I continue this relationship with the mother of my children so that we're both supporting our kids when I have so much resentment towards the relationship and how we separated? And you've got to work through that stuff, and you got to process that for your kids so that you can both be there for them.
100%. And I think with that, the best thing to do while you're processing or to help you process is to keep it all, at least at the very beginning, while it's all fresh and new. Because the goal is to be civil, right? The goal is to be civil, to be cordial, to be able to sit in the same room and support your kids. That's the end goal, right? But to get there, the very beginning, you almost have to be transactional. You have to be transactional. You have to keep it like business. You have to keep it business pretty much. Which is good because it takes all the emotion out of it. It takes all the emotion out of it pretty much is when it's transactional. Because if we're doing business together and I'm like, Jay, pleasure to meet you, shake your hand, let's talk business, let's talk numbers, let's do the thing, right? Keep this transactional. Okay, thank you for your time very much. See ya, out of here. Focus, transactional. Bada bing, bada boom, in and out. Not in that way, but it's just transactional. That's all. That's the best advice. That if I was to give advice to a newly separated dad that's now co-parenting, is to keep it transactional. Take the emotion out of it. Keep it out.
Yeah, when we add emotion to the separation, to figuring out the assets, to time with your kids, what seems to happen for men is they go angry. They get angry. They get worked up, and it's a natural response. Like, there's nothing wrong with getting angry, but there's a time and a place. If that anger is in you, you've got to find a channel for that, so that when you're negotiating for your kids' time, for the assets, for the house, for the cars, for any of that stuff, you want to be logical. You want to think, what's the best move here? What's the best strategy? And having somebody guide you through that with proper tools and organizing your emotional states. And it's so beneficial to have somebody that's objective, that's outside of the emotional container that is a separation, that is that family getting pulled apart, because it's overwhelming to you and you're not thinking clear. You're thinking in a very emotional state. You're reacting to everything. You're not responding. You're not thinking logical. You need somebody in your corner to oversee it and say, okay, this is the next step we're going to take. This is what I want you to do tomorrow so that you're in a healthy state of mind. Let's stay away from the drinking. Let's stay away from the drugs. Let's stay away from all this stuff right now. We're figuring this out. Let's get as stable as we possibly can, so that 2 years from now, you're not looking back with all these regrets on all the things that you should have said or you should have done. Let's manage this properly so that we can get through it. So
100%.
those separations are really, really hard. I mean, just fatherhood, just having kids alone is very, very hard. Just managing the relationship, managing a marriage is hard. It doesn't matter where you are in your fatherhood or what your situation is, you've got to put some energy behind figuring out what's important to you and how you're going to manage it. Because if you just let it come at you and you're constantly reacting, you're going to get off balance. You're going to stumble, you're going to fall. You've got to kind of get in front of it, like you said, and be proactive about what you want to do and how you want to be as a father. And the sooner you do it, the younger your kids are, and the sooner you get that North Star and you get your direction of what you want to do, the better off it is. Because everything comes at you so fast, and you're not used to change happening so fast in your life as when you have a kid, because everything changes. And the
Everything.
fathers who think that they're going to be the same person before they've had kids and after they have kids, it's really hard because they're resisting that change and they're not going into that flow of change. I've got to change. I have to change. That kid is going to come at you so hard with all the things that you're going to have to change and shift and pivot in your life. And if you're not changing direction to go with it, it's just a constant battle.
100%. And I think the important part of that is that recognizing the change, understanding the change, and then with the whole anger piece, anger is a secondary emotion. It kind of goes back to like what I mentioned earlier, to making sure like you ask yourself, why am I angry? Is this really anger, or is this sadness? Is this a broken heart? Is this disappointment? Is this my dreams are shattered? Why am I angry? Because anger is going to be a secondary emotion on top of another emotion. Um, so it's important to figure out and assess that anger for what it is. Why am I angry? Where is this coming from? And then finding your outlet to get it out from there. Because anger can look a lot of different ways. Maybe it is physical anger, but where are you feeling that anger in your body? Why are you
Mm-hmm.
feeling angry? Are you feeling it in your hands? Are your hands tight? Are your hands sweaty? Are you feeling it in your face? Are you feeling it in your temples? Are you feeling it in your legs? Are you feeling it in your arms, your chest, your belly? Um, if you're feeling your belly, you're probably hungry. You probably need to eat something. If you're feeling it like in your
Angry. You're not
throat,
angry. You're angry. Yeah, you need
exactly. If you're
you
feeling
need
in your
something.
throat, maybe you're a bit thirsty. Maybe you're not realizing it, that you're really thirsty, and that's making you a little bit upset. So it's just important to recognize it. But yes, the flood of that is fatherhood that comes in, it changes everything. It changes who you are biologically. It changes who you are mentally. It changes who you are emotionally. It changes who you are spiritually, if you believe in that. It changes every aspect of you as a father. And it's important to recognize that those changes are going to happen as soon as you become a father. As soon as you hold that little baby in your arms for the very first time, when you feel that very first kick in the belly, all those things, if you're a part of that process, that's all going to change you. It biologically changes who you are as a person. And yeah, so it's super important to recognize that. But is there anything else that you want to mention from anything that we talked about, or are you ready to jump in to the YDP3 here?
Well, just the one thing that I do want to mention, I'm dying to get into these questions. I'm super curious what you have to ask. But one thing I wanted to mention is if you're a dad out there and you do just want to have a chat and conversation and see what we can do, I mean, like jump on the Zen Dad Method and book a call. I love chat. This is what I love to do. I love talking about parenting. I love finding solutions. It's not just about getting it out there and having a chat about it. It's like, okay, well, what can we actually do? What are the
Mm-hmm.
actual solutions? I think men are so logic based and they want solutions. What are the actual things I can do that will make a change? And that's kind of what we set up. So yeah, I love having these chats. So thank you so much for these chats. But yeah, let's
Of
dive in and
course.
see what I can answer for these questions.
All right. So YDP3, there are three questions I ask every guest toward the end of our recording, to just kind of rack your brain, to end us kind of on a philosophical note. It's a great way to wrap everything back together, and to learn a little bit more about you. First question here is, where are you rooted? So with that, like, what are your core values? What makes up the innermost workings of Jay?
Fun. Fun. I love fun. That's if I can have fun during the day, if I can have fun at work, if I can have fun with my kids, that's I'm winning. And that's probably my core value. Everything else, it kind of gets done. Like they're mandatory. You've got to make money. You've got to eat. You've got to do all these things. But my core value is, how do I show my kids how to enjoy life? This weekend was a really hard weekend for me, and I needed to pivot a lot of energy. And I had my kids. We went tobogganing. We got snow finally. We haven't had any real snow up here yet. It's the middle of January. It's Canada. You're expecting snow in November, and we just didn't get it. And so we spent about over 2 days. We spent about 4 hours tobogganing and laughing and rolling around in the snow, and it was just wild fun. And I cut everything else out just to have fun with my kids because we all needed it. And sometimes the world just gets heavy and you have to do things. That's always going to happen. And whenever I can just shift the focus to fun for a little bit, an hour, 2 hours out of my day, it feeds my soul. And I can see my kids light up. And if I can hear my kids giggle, if I can see them smile every day, I just feel like that's where I'm doing the best work I can for my kids and for myself. Fun.
100%.
Fun's my
100%.
priority.
100% love that. You kind of answered the next one within that one, but we'll see if you got anything else here. What grounds you when you're all stressy and depressy, or when you're really feeling it? What kind of brings you back into reality, and what brings you down?
I've had like probably one of the most heaviest months in my life. The last month has been a lot. It's been a lot to handle. We've had 2 deaths in my family, and it's been a lot for everybody, for honestly everybody. And I do a lot of breath work. That's the most grounding thing I can recommend to anyone. I actually facilitate them now. I've done hundreds of them, but we do really big hour-long breathwork sessions, and it helps me process so much stuff. I can super think. I've done amazing things in breathwork sessions. I won't get into them right now. It'd be a whole nother hour podcast. But probably the single most effective thing I've learned, like tool in my toolbox to ground me, to get me centered, to get out of that reactive state and back into a logical thinking state is just different kinds of breath work.
I love that. And the last one here is, let's say I'm up in Canada. I don't know you. You don't know me. I see you at the park with your kids. And you look over at me. We just kind of make eye contact from across the way, right? Kind of like classic love story.
Yeah.
But I see you and you look at me. You're like, wow, that guy looks like he's going through it. You can see the bags on my eyes. You can see kind of the vibes are really low over here. And then I look at you. In my head, I'm thinking, wow, he's having fun. He's got it together. He's smiling. He's laughing. He's enjoying life. What's his secret? What has he got? What is he doing that I'm not doing? Because I'm like, I'm low. I'm so low that I'm like below. I'm like on the ground. I'm a part of the pavement. That's how low I am. And so then
Yep.
I walk over to you. I'm like, look, man, I don't know you. You don't know me. We're complete strangers. I see you. You're having fun. You look happy. Your kids are having fun. What are you doing that I'm not doing? Because I'm probably at the lowest point in my entire life I've ever been. In that moment, you get to tell me maybe 1.5 pieces of advice to maybe try to bring me out of that even a little bit.
Oh, it's a whole process. Oh my God. That's a really big question. It's a really big question. I've actually been in that situation. I've actually been at the park playing 20, 25 kids playing hide and seek, touch tag kind of games. I'm a pretty popular parent at the park.
All right.
And one time I had this dad come up to me and he looked at me and he's like, "How are you doing this?" Like how are you doing this? And I said to him, I put my phone in the car. That's what I did. And I put it down and I'm just present. I'm where I have to be. And whatever the emotion is that's coming up, whatever the situation is right there, I'm going to deal with it. I'm not pulling myself away, because if I don't know where I am and I don't know what's going on in my life, if I'm not in that situation, I'm not ever going to know how to get out of it. So if I'm sad, I got to know I'm sad. And do I want to shift out of it? Is there something I need to process? Be present. Be present with your kids. Be present with yourself. The more you can get into this moment right now, the better chance you have. So doing that's what we do. That's the whole process, getting you to that point. After 3 months with us, 90 days, you go from, I don't know where to even go, to, okay, I got it. I know exactly where I'm going. I know the path that I want. That's my North Star. That's what I want to go after. This is who I want to be. And then you start taking those steps. And it's not one simple thing. Everybody, it's different. But if if you don't know where you're starting from, you're always going to be lost. Be present, be there, be right where you are as much as you can. That's my advice for that.
I love that. I love that. Well, Jay, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. The people can find more of you over on Instagram at the Zen Dad Method. They can find you on Facebook at Jay. I don't even know how to say your last name.
Jay Kalryzian, just like Lando
Kalryzian.
Calrissian from Star Wars. Yeah, Kalryzian.
Gotcha. So you can find more of Jay over on Facebook. You can find him on LinkedIn, and you can also find him on TikTok as well. Anywhere else that the people can find you, or anything else that you want to plug here in the last minute or so of the show?
Yeah, www.zendadmethod.com. You can go there. We've got a free book that you can get there. It's to help your kids go to bed. It's the bedtime routine, just to be intentional with your kids, figure out a routine for them to get them to bed. It lowers a lot of stress. Everybody's got to put their kids to bed. And you can also book a chat with me if you want. You can book something in. My time is very limited and it's very valuable. So, but I'm always interested in hearing where dads are. And the more knowledge we get about where dads are, what they're doing, the more dads we can help. So I'm always open to having those conversations. So yeah, hit up the zendadmethod.com and yeah, let's connect.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been just awesome getting to chat with you, the other day, and being connected with you. So it's much appreciated. Thank you for everything we were able to touch on today.
Yeah,
Um,
it's been an absolute pleasure, Jay. Absolute pleasure.
it's been great. Well, guys, we'll see you next week.